G'day everyone. Just going to show off a basic assembly guide for the Woozi. I just want to show off where all the screws and everything, how it just sort of fits together, make it a bit clearer how to build one. First thing I like to do is start off with the left shell, and I fit the mag release. So you got the little lever arm here. I leave everything out for now. I run the M 2.6 by 12 long screw through here, and then you've got a couple of spring holes up in here which you got an option for different spring tensions. I like to use the strongest one, but depending on what springs you actually get, you might need different. And that screw there is the 6mm long one. So once you assemble that in there, it will pivot like this. Then I like to take the little connecting arm, whatever you call it, drop it in this way, and then flip it over down into there. So you see it's gone through that little gap. Then I take the actual mag release lock itself, and you got to try line it up with a little pin. It's a little bit fiddly, but if you just play around with a bit, that one missed, you'll get it to line up. You pull it back, and there you go, that's locked in. You sort of see it pivoting there. And then I'll grab the compression spring. I think it's popped back out, nice one. Alright, so you try to keep your finger on it so it doesn't pop out like that did. Grab the compression spring, squeeze it together. It has a little locating hole once it drops in, like that. Alright, that was real painful. Normally not that bad. So if you hold your finger on there, you can actually see it pivoting back and forth. Now, once that side is done, I switch over to the other. Actually, while I'm here, on the grip covers, I've used the M2 by 4mm long countersunk screws you use for the motor mount. So, just if anyone ever wants to know. Alright, now we get onto the right side shell. What goes in here is all this contraption. We'll start with the actual pusher box itself and how to build that. So you assemble, I run a Neo Rhino. You slide that in first, put your worm gear on, and then you use the 10 amp DC2 switch. And I like to, well, the only way you can do it is actually solder this all up before dropping the actual gear in. So you wire it all up like a normal rapid strike, and you just use the NC instead of NO on the rev switch because of the way the trigger works. And then once that's all together and soldered in there in that sort of position, you grab your gear, you put the pin to the back so that way it's actually in the closed position when you start, and it slides in, clips in nicely. I like to use a bit of lithium grease on everything in here to keep it all lubricated and so it doesn't wear. You grab your pusher, push it back on the spring and drop it on. Then you have your cover for the gearbox that goes over like this. Now you leave these two screws out in the rear for now, and you grab two M 2.6 by 6mm long for the top here. Fit them in. Like that. And you assemble your flywheels and motors. Now these are the flywheels I've had custom made up for this one, but normally you'd use the worker Hurricane wheels. You fit 4 motors in, screw them down with a M2 by 4mm long screws that are actually, you might be able to see through the gap. In there, there's some in there. and make sure that they're all lined up nicely so they're even. Now this whole setup here, I'm grabbing screws with the magnetics on the motors, get out of the way. This whole setup will go in here, bring it closer. The gearbox itself will drop in the back there. The wires will feed down into this channel through the middle, and the wires for the actual pusher switch will go through the back of everything and loop to the front here, and then screw down there, and then the cage will drop in at the front. You want to leave the cage loose for now so you can fit the trigger. So what I like to do is to screw the gearbox in at the top here, the screw up in here first, and get that all mounted in for now, and then feed the wires through the channel in the middle. You can sort of see in there. Drop that on there. It fits when the wires are nicely in. It'll fit into there. Now I've actually got two type of switches that can fit here. I've got the big micro switch and the small 10 amp micro switch. There's an adapter plate that will screw on here if you want to use a small one for a single stage build. And then I grab the M 2.6 by 12mm long screws through the switch here, drop them in and screw through. If you use screws that are too long here, they will poke out the other end of the shell, so just be careful there. Just long enough that they screw in, but not too long that they stick out. Now I'll fit this switch here, which is the M 2.3 by 10. Front there, should have another one line around here somewhere. Now with the switches, I like to take the lever arms off them. It makes the trigger have a bit more travel and just feel nicer. So while the cage is still loose, you can sort of lift it up. I'll drop the trigger itself with the spring. I'll hook the spring on first. So you hook the spring on the back end in here on the screw. Now that screw has two different holes you can put in for different tensions, and that's a M 2.6 by 6mm long screw. You pull it underneath the cage and then drop it into the hole at the bottom here. You'll see it will clip in there. Once that's all nicely lined up in there, we'll drop the cage down and in. Be sure not to pinch the wires on the front here. So pull that out and that hooks around the front there. Fits down nicely. And then I grab the M 2.6 by 8mm screws and I screw the motors in. Actually screw the cage into the blaster. There's 5 of them all the way around. magnets, put that across. The joys of neo magnet motors is they like to attract the bolts, or should I say screws, because my magnetic screwdriver is weaker than the actual motors. There we go. That's all nicely in there. You'll see the trigger will release this one first and then hit the next one, so you get a nice decent amount of trigger travel. That's in there. Now you fit the barrel. There's a few options for this. I just like the blank one, better for performance. That slides in this little channel up in the front like that, clips in. And that's pretty much the internals done. Now I like to drop the left shell on. It will drop over nicely. Like this. Now the screws I use in here are M2.6 by 10. There's already a few in here, so I'll do them up first. Right, now the barrel has two screw holes here. They're M2.6 by 10mm long. The reason why I use so many screws on this actual blaster is because flywheel blasters like to vibrate a lot, and having the extra screws just makes it sound that much nicer and no vibrations. So I'd rather pay the extra few cents for a few extra screws and have something that sounds like a chainsaw going along, especially when you're overvolting motors and trying to kill stuff. Okay, now on the rear there's 4 screws for the sling or stock mount. And there's 2 other little screws through here that go through into the back of the pusher box. They are M2.6 by 8 for the pusher box. Make sure you start it straight. And these actually go all the way through into the pusher box. They're the screws we left out earlier. That locks everything in nicely. And then we've got the sling mount. That's what I prefer. I haven't tested the actual stock yet, but we'll do soon. They're all M2.6 by 8. Most of these screws are actually Nerf size screws, and similar to what the Pigeon uses. I've took a lot of basic design ideas from Heath's designs because, well, he's awesome, so why wouldn't you? Right, now the top rail is actually, on the newer versions, there's 6 screws through the middle here, as I found this version flex too much, and they're all M2.6 by 6mm long, so they'll go in there. This version only has 4, but the newer one has 6. That's it assembled there without the battery cover on. Now, the best way to fit the battery, I'll show you how. I run the Nanotech 1.5, the 1500. So I plug it in first. I flip it so the wires come around the back like this. Then I tuck it in. Move my hand out of the way, like this, and the wires will go in the back here and fit nicely. They'll drop in. I lay the XT60 flat like this, and then put the battery cover on. They're M2.6 by 8mm screws. Make sure you get the wires in neatly. Drop on nicely. And there you have it. One assembled Woozi. Pretty simple, pretty basic. Soldering probably takes the longest. So I hope you guys enjoy this video and it helps you make sense on how to build one. Thanks.